Sydney Kings star Andrew Bogut is holding a special press conference after the NBL finals were cut short by the COVID-19 outbreak, with the title awarded to the Perth Wildcats.
With great companies and professional sport, it's handling things proactively, being reactive, and then doing things retroactively. And I think the retroactive aspect of this has been a 10 out of 10. The proactiveness has been barely a 1, and the reactive stuff's probably about a 5. So when you have a number of people working for your corporation, your organisation, your sporting league, I think it goes outside the grain to just block your ears out and hope that everything works out. And that's what I felt from day one outside the King's brass. It was a case of la 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 la. We were told at numerous times when our front office people and Paul Smith and Chris Pongrass reached out to the league that business as usual, everything's fine. A day later, the NBA shuts down. Day after that, the Grand Prix shut down, and we're just in limbo. So like I said, this isn't about going back and forth with Perth. Congratulate them as the championship winners, well deserved, 2-1. We'll move on from that. It's more a disappointment in the way it was handled, and that's something the NBL needs to really learn from. Being a league that prides itself on trying to build and get better, and what a lot of people don't forget is we're one of the unique sports in Australia that has a number of players that aren't from Australia, that aren't based in Sydney for us. For our case, we had half our rosters from either another state or from overseas, and that's what people don't realise when these decisions are made. It's not so much that we were scared to catch a flu. That was probably 1% of this decision. There was a lot of ramifications that came into play about going back to Perth and playing that series. And like I said, the disappointing thing was that it was left up to the players to decide. It was up to us to initiate these meetings, to push these meetings, to find out, is there going to be a crowd, isn't there? I mean, our front office had to call the league and Perth and go on a call and be like, what's going on? Well, are the fans coming in? We had to initiate that. I'm on record to say that because I know it's a fact. We had to initiate all of that, and then what happened after that is what it is. But that's where the disappointment lies. As an athlete, I understand that we're essentially, as funny as it sounds, somewhat mercenaries. We put our bodies through a lot to play the game we love. Paid a huge amount of money for it at times. There's a lot of perks to it, but at the same time we understand that there's some risk with injuries and whatnot. But at the same time, you don't want to be felt like a pawn from your organisation. And that's what I think a lot of players felt, was that we haven't even been given an afterthought. The players had no direct communications from the NBL at any time throughout this process whatsoever. And that's kind of what I want to say leading out with this. That's where my disappointment lies, is that has to improve. I mean, these cases are rare. People might say, well, how do you prepare for this? How do you handle this? But there was no contingency plans. There was no scenarios put out. I mean, I would have liked to have thought they sat in a room for 2 hours in Melbourne at NBL HQ and had 10 different scenarios with 3 or 4 different options for each of them. That's what business-minded people would do, in my opinion. That wasn't done. So that's where we lie. Where we lie today is everything that's happened. It's disappointing, and some guys possibly have played their last professional game for our club. I don't know about them. Some guys possibly have played the last time in the NBL, and for it to end the way it did is utterly disappointing, and still a decision that we're all, we're good with now, but it's still in the back of your mind. You're thinking, oh, could we have played? Could we haven't? But that's just the way it goes.
Do you think their thought process was that there was only 2 games left in the season, let's try and push through, and then I suppose what happened, as like put their hands in the put their head in the sand, and not have to deal with it, like whereas other sports, like the sports are now only just starting, so they have to really confront it?
I can't really speak for them too much. I can just speak for us. There's still some sports playing today in Australia, which is a whole other issue. The rest of the world shut down. So, even if people don't think there's a risk for you individually, it's kind of hard for guys to turn on TV and see the EPL shutting down, the NBA shutting down, and we're one of the last leagues standing. It's pretty hard. We talk about mental health in athletes every day, and that's a big issue in probably the last decade. And I can tell you for a fact, there's guys in our locker room that are having some pretty big mental health issues just from all of this. And that's not an excuse, it's just a fact, it's just reality of what we're dealing with, and that's kind of the frustrating part of it. People, like I said, this isn't a case of myself or my teammates getting on a plane and be like, I'm going to get a flu for 14 days. When we know it generally, isn't going to put you on a deathbed for guys our age and guys that are in our health. That was 1% of what we're dealing with. I mean, there's travel restrictions for guys that live in the States. There's all kinds of things going on. There's people that have grandparents on deathbeds on our team that are probably going to have a year or two left to live that they want to see their grandparents, So these aren't excuses for why we did what we did. These are just the fact of the matter of a 3-hour meeting with a lot of tears and how we came to the conclusion of pulling the plug.
But you would like to say when the NBA is cancelled, would you like to see the NBL then have made a call?
Or just give us something.
Right.
Poke your head in the door and say hello. Like, give us something. We heard nothing. And like I said, for the players to have to initiate these meetings and make these decisions, and give ourselves options of pros and cons to whatever we're dealing with is embarrassing. It's just not right. And that's, the NBL and whoever else can say what they want. I'm part of the Players Association. I'm on the board there, and I have a bit more intel than the average NBL player and the average NBL coach or front office person. So I know for a fact that this was just, not even thought about when this started before Game 2. It was an afterthought. It was like, everything will be all right. Just keep going, And then as it got closer, then the fan thing happened, which we initiated. And then, that's the hard thing. It's like we shouldn't be put in that position and have to make those decisions. People above us should be at least giving us some scenarios that we can talk through, and that's why we ended up making that decision as well. And I think to this day, if the NBL came out in early week leading up to Game 2 and gave some sort of protocol or feedback, a suggestion I had was, can we isolate 3 or 4 rows on the airplane on each side of the players? Can we then guarantee some sort of testing at the end of this series for guys that want it? I think that then gives you a peace of mind, like, hey, like it calms the storm a little bit, like they're trying to do something, they're trying to be proactive, they're thinking about our health and safety.
That's Sydney Kings star Andrew Bogut. They're extremely critical of the NBL after they decided to award the championships to the Perth Wildcats. They were leading 2-1 in those final 5 decided games, but it was the Sydney Kings who withdrew. So the NBL took that 48-hour window to decide what to do, then awarded it to the Wildcats because they were the ones who did want to continue playing and were leading in that final decider. But Andrew Bogut, not backing in his coach there, who was more empathetic with the position, saying that they should have had much more communication from the NBL sooner about how to handle those games, even without the crowds.